They say that only two certainties exist in life: death and taxes. However, if you ask me, there is a third one: the inevitability of change. Change is inevitable, and while some of them are good, others not so much. But as they say, you can't make an omelette without first breaking a few eggs. That quote by French writer and politician Charles de Brosse perfectly encapsulates what happened in 1907 when a group of French waiters went on strike for the right to grow mustaches. Yes, you heard that right. You probably thought your job was bad, but trust me, it could have been way worse. The year before, French waiters had already tried to improve their working conditions. Like many other workers, servers in France worked 6 days a week, with the only day off being Monday. On top of that, they received no vacation time or sick leave and had to put up with low wages. That's why on June 28, 1906, waiters across the country decided to go on strike. The workers wanted a number of changes, including better wages and 1 day off per week. And to show their solidarity, they even agreed to all shave on the same day to make a powerful statement. The head waiter at the Hotel de Paris in Toulouse remembered the event well. He said that the strike began after lunch when more than 100 waiters from various restaurants in the city center stopped working. But while they were willing to fight for better working conditions, they also had another goal in mind. They wanted the right to wear facial hair, specifically mustaches. At the time, a mustache was the height of fashion among men. Everyone from artists and writers to aristocrats and commoners sported one. However, this was not the case for waiters. In fact, many restaurant owners had a strict no mustache rule for servers. For example, the renowned Maître Paul, who ran several popular eateries in Paris, enforced a clean-shaven policy. It was his way of ensuring that his waiters looked neat and professional. The problem was that the servers didn't really appreciate this approach. Not only did they want to conform to the prevailing fashion trend, but they also believed that a mustache enhanced their attractiveness, which in turn led to more tips. This explains why the waiters chose to take such an extreme measure as shaving their faces bare in protest. When the restaurant owners realized that the waiters had all shaved off their mustaches, they knew that something was up. Sure enough, the servers presented a list of demands, including a higher minimum wage, weekly salaries instead of daily, and finally, the right to grow a mustache. While the owners considered the rest of the demands reasonable, they rejected the idea of allowing their waiters to have mustaches. One of the owners said that it was out of the question, as customers would not understand why their waiters were growing facial hair. Instead, he offered the workers an extra 5 francs per month if they agreed not to grow mustaches. This offer was quickly rejected, as the servers were not giving up their dignity for just a little extra money. The waiters continued their strike for 16 long days, with tens of thousands of people supporting their cause. Some even joined the movement by shaving their own faces. Eventually, the restaurant owners had had enough. On July 15, 1906, they informed the strikers that they could return to work with immediate effect. The terms of their employment would remain unchanged, except for the demand that they be paid weekly rather than daily. So in the end, the workers had to settle for less than what they had initially asked for. They didn't win the right to have a day off every Sunday, but they did manage to get a fairer pay structure. As for the mustaches, the waiters were finally allowed to grow them back. And so the strike ended with both sides feeling like they had won a small victory. The waiters returned to work happy to be paid weekly and to sport the latest fashion trend. Meanwhile, the owners were satisfied with having kept their business running and maintaining order in their establishments. However, this was not the only unusual strike that took place in France on that time. Another similar event occurred in Lyon, where several thousand textile factory workers, mostly women, went on a wildcat strike. Their main grievance was that their employers were making them remove their veils while at work. The women were used to wearing the traditional French veil, which covered their face and left only their eyes exposed. However, their boss demanded that they take it off, saying that it impeded their work. To show their solidarity, the women went on strike. When their colleagues arrived at the factory the next morning, they found the gates locked, and the strikers had disappeared. From then on, the workers refused to return to work until their veils were respected. But this was easier said than done. The management quickly hired replacement workers, and the strikers were losing both money and hope. But just when all seemed lost, an unlikely savior appeared, Lenny Tillieu, a well-known feminist and activist. She helped the strikers get in touch with the Socialist Party, which supported their cause. With the party's backing, the women were able to secure legal counsel and file a complaint against their employers. The case went to court and public opinion was divided. Some argued that the women should be free to wear whatever they wanted, while others claimed that the veil impeded their ability to work effectively and efficiently. After much deliberation, the judge ruled in favor of the workers, declaring that they had the right to wear their veils to work. This victory was a significant milestone in the fight for women's rights in France. It showed that even in the most conservative of industries, change was possible. The women were celebrated as heroes, and their story inspired other workers to stand up for their own rights. This was made possible thanks to an unlikely alliance between feminists and devout Catholics. Despite their different backgrounds and beliefs, both groups came together to fight for a common cause. This just goes to show that change can come from the most unexpected places. And as for the waiters, they had to wait another for decades to finally win their hard-fought battle. In 1946, after years of struggle and negotiation, the Syndicate National des Salaires de la Nourriture, a national federation representing restaurant workers, succeeded in getting mustaches legalized in the workplace. By that time, the younger generation of waiters had never known a time when they weren't allowed to have mustaches. Therefore, they felt it was strange that older waiters who had fought so hard for this right would now have to start shaving again. But times had changed, and the older waiters were more than happy to pass on their hard-earned victory to the next generation. In the end, the legalization of mustaches in the workplace was a small but significant step towards greater freedom and self-expression for French waiters. They were finally able to express themselves the way they wanted to without fear of being reprimanded or punished by their employers. This might seem like a trivial matter today, but back then it was a big deal. It was a symbol of the changing times, a time when workers were becoming more aware of their rights and were no longer willing to put up with the old rules and regulations. The legalization of mustaches in the workplace was a small victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. It was a victory for the workers, a victory for self-expression, and a victory for individuality. The story of the French waiters who went on strike for the right to grow a mustache is a reminder that change is possible even in the most unlikely of circumstances. It's a story about standing up for what you believe in, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem. It's a story about solidarity, determination, and the power of collective action. The waiters didn't just fight for themselves, they fought for every waiter that came after them. They paved the way for future generations of waiters to grow their mustaches with pride. So the next time you see a waiter with a mustache, take a moment to appreciate their sacrifice and their hard-fought victory. And who knows, maybe their story will inspire you to stand up for your own rights and fight for a better future. Now, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between your personal style and your job? And do you think it's important for workers to have the freedom to express themselves at work? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe for more fascinating historical tales. Thank you for watching. Wiki Wisdom Media.